Today on CityCast Austin, this town can be a tough place for single people. Is it the tech bro culture? Are there just too many fish in the sea? And is always being online and watching those love reality shows causing unrealistic expectations? I'm joined today with writer and hopeful romantic Rose McMacken to talk about it. CityCast Austin is brought to you by our exclusive launch sponsor, Tecovas. It's Thursday, September 12th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. I'm here with Rose McMacken, reporter for Austin Monthly Magazine. Hello, Rose. Thank you for being here. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Living the dream. So you recently wrote a story for Austin Monthly Magazine all about dating, and I'm obsessed, side note, and why it's so difficult. So what inspired you to write that?
So Anya Haas had shared this video that went viral online, and it had clearly really resonated with a lot of people. And so there was a lot of dating discourse sort of bubbling up. And I finally watched it and kind of went, oh, of course, this video is from Austin. She recorded this TikTok in her kitchen after kind of a night out. She had gone out hoping to meet someone and just had kind of like not really connected, had felt, very alone. And I think worried that maybe she was being judged for being alone. And so she got home and she felt really demoralized. And so she filmed this video of herself at the counter in her kitchen, crying a little bit, kind of expressing some of those fears that she might not meet someone, which I think really, so it went viral. And I think that really resonated for people because I think the fear that you might not meet someone, that you might not find the person, especially when we're so kind of heavily vested in deriving meaning in our lives from these profound love stories, like we see, again, that we're play acting, the media that we watch.
Kind of at the heart of dating that is not talked about a lot is loneliness and it being taboo to just like say the thing. Like, this is hard. This sucks. I've definitely had those feelings where I'm like, I went out tonight. I put in effort. I look really good. I was hoping to just like connect with somebody. I'm not trying to find the person I'm with for the rest of my life. If that happens, great. But sometimes you just want to go out and you want to have connection and you want to just like, be treated nicely because you treat others nicely. And when that does not happen, it is hard to say that out loud, even to your friends. Yeah. It feels embarrassing, and there's like shame associated with it because it feels like a failure, even though you didn't fail at anything.
It feels a little bit taboo to name the fear of not finding someone that you connect with. And it's frankly feels a little taboo to name that you're lonely. And so I think the fact that she kind of said that out loud really resonated with people, and the video went viral and then inspired people to share kind of their nightmare dating stories all over the country. And people had a lot of them for sure.
Yeah, you didn't fail at anything. It's just tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also the conversation about loneliness is just, vast, especially coming off of the pandemic and people coming off of what was a really lonely time, looking for connection, looking for some of us to get something back.
And I think there's something very scary about kind of facing the fact that you can't force it or control it, that it is out of your control. That can really kind of make you feel adrift on a very existential sea, I think.
Right. What is your personal role in the Austin dating scene?
So I moved down here about 3 years ago from Seattle, and I lived in San Francisco before that. So I've been in a couple different dating scenes, and I've been dating off and on since I've been here. A little on the apps, a little bit of meeting people just in real life, kind of a mix. And it does feel really different from dating in those other big cities where I've lived.
Why does it feel different?
I think part of it I attribute maybe to just a cultural difference. San Francisco and Seattle are both just more reserved cities in general. It's very, very abnormal in Seattle for people to approach you and talk to you cold. I kind of had to recalibrate how friendly I was being when I was out in Austin, because before I knew it, I would smile at someone and get sucked into a conversation far more easily. The word that comes to mind is that it's a more kind of aggressive social scene. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but just that people are more willing to start conversations or to kind of directly pursue you or approach you in a bar or strike up a conversation, which I think can be really fun, but it doesn't also necessarily inherently lead to long-term relationships or commitment at any greater rate. I don't necessarily think.
So, first of all, couldn't agree with you more. Austin, I think I'm very biased, but I think that Austin is definitely one of the most friendly. It's a friendly city. So Austin's median age is apparently 34.5. It's very specific.
I've heard that, yeah.
And 45% of Austinites have never been married. But what do these and other statistics tell you about what it's like to be single in Austin? I hear the term Peter Pan syndrome a lot, especially specifically when it comes to men in Austin. But like, do you think that these statistics about marriage are indicative of just like where we are in the city? Like, people are not trying to get married right now.
Yeah, I think Peter Pan syndrome gets kind of a really bad rap, but in many ways, it's such a privilege to be living in a place where we have the option to stay single longer if we want to. I know, I've worked in tech up until very recently, and one of the kind of really notable luxuries of that was being able to live alone if I wanted to, not feeling financial pressure to enter into a relationship with someone that wasn't the person that I really wanted. And that, we often talk about that as kind of a negative thing, that we're staying single longer, but I see it as really a beautiful thing to have more options and more choice, more autonomy, the chance to be more discerning about what we want our lives to look like. And I do think that is kind of the lovely flip side of this Peter Pan culture. You could call that commitment phobic, but you could also call it kind of a broader cultural shift towards expecting more from our relationships and from marriage as an institution.
I like that. So when I am single, I love it. I am a person that, I need a long leash when I'm in relationships. So being single works really well for me. But then eventually I get pulled back in by the dating apps. But recently, I feel like specifically in women, there's been this move to kind of ditch them and start meeting people more in person. Now, how do you feel about dating apps, and why do you think that more people are moving away from them?
We all have swiping fatigue, I think is what I've heard it described as. It's, I think, hard to really appreciate people as full dynamic individuals when we see them kind of so neatly commodified as a profile. And
ooh, I like that.
I have always found it much harder to feel a strong sense of connection or investment in someone that I have met on a dating app. And I think it might just be that it's hard to take someone out of the context of a dating app and not kind of be on some level aware of the possibility that you could just keep swiping through, that there are more people like this. It's hard to really allow that person to kind of get their full due presence in your life. And, I think dating apps, I kind of think they might be on the way out. I think they were kind of this fun thing for a while, but I think everybody's ready to move. Maybe this is a really hot take, but I think people are generally kind of missing connecting in real life. People, I feel like that's so much of the brat summer discourse is people miss parties. And I think people just miss like real human connection that is so dependent on being embodied, and it's really hard to replicate that.
What makes dating in Austin unique, aside from the fact that we're friendly and it's kind of a larger town? What are other things that are making it challenging?
So I think you have a kind of this population that's super, super used to using tech. And then there's also this Peter Pan syndrome, this kind of freedom to like stay single if you want to stay single. And I see that really as being kind of downstream of the tech economy in a lot of ways. Austin takes kind of pride in this like weird Richard Linklater-esque slacker culture, for, lack of a better word, which is part of what makes Austin funky. That element of it that people take so much pride in, I think, comes from the fact that it's got a big artist population. It's got really creative people who are doing really interesting things. And sometimes that can be, when you're really immersed in those projects, when you're really committed to your creative life, you may not have as much bandwidth to be in a super committed relationship, to be a super great partner. And it can be tricky to balance those things. And I think part of what draws people to Austin sometimes is the opportunity to work in the art scene, to be a part of that hustle. And those might not be people who have dating or marriage at the top of their priority list right now, at least.
I think that is a very, very nice way to say that it is difficult dating musicians. No. It's so funny to hear you say that because the slacker culture that you talk about, like, you know, from a native Austinite's point of view, sometimes it feels like we're losing that because tech is moving in. And I feel like the people that I meet have a way more kind of laid back, slacker, kind of like chilled out vibe that we have been, that we're known for a lot of the times. And I think some of it is that when you're trying to make a living as a musician here, then it just like this gig culture that it zaps all of your focus, it zaps all of your energy, and you kind of want, the musicians that I know, they want connection. They don't have time for it. Y'all, can I tell you about these Tecovas boots? These boots are handmade, high quality, stylish, and comfortable right out of the box. I know we buy everything online these days, but boots are something you really should get fitted for. And it just so happens that Tecovas is based right here in Austin. So grab a friend, head on over to the Tecovas flagship on South Congress or to their store at the Domain. Do you know what's better than shopping? Shopping with a beer. This is wild, but when you go in, a friendly person hands you a cold beer for free while you shop around. Tecovas will personalize your boots or anything else you buy with customized leather stamping. So come shop with me at the Tecovas store on South Congress or the Domain. That's TECOVAS.com. Don't go gently, y'all. I'm curious, I think in Austin, polyamory, non-monogamy has really seen a rise, like in the past couple of years for sure. Not just in the queer scene, but just like in the dating scene, period. We have all of these options in relationships, non-monogamy, all of these things that people are talking about now that I feel like if people would just be honest from the beginning, then it might be a little easier to tell where they are in their relationship journey.
I mean, I will say, I think that's one of the beauties of the dating apps is that people have the opportunity to be really upfront about that right out of the gate. But what I think is tricky is people don't always know. It's hard to know what you want. It's hard to know what you want until you have it and you've tried it. So sometimes it can be hard to communicate upfront about exactly what it is that you want because maybe you don't know yet. I think there can be a disconnect sometimes around what people think relationships are supposed to look like. And maybe that's something that feels so intuitive to them that they don't have words for it even, or haven't necessarily figured out, haven't maybe gotten the confidence to advocate for it in their relationships. But I think that when you can be honest about what it is that you're looking for, it gives you the opportunity to meet someone who really can accept you where you're at. And that, I think, is a really exciting element of connection that sometimes we overlook. And dating, just connecting with people in general, it works so differently from almost anything else in our lives. How well you do your job is often so directly proportionate to the effort that you put into it. There are so many places on your phone where you can buy exactly what you want, your exact specifications.
Right.
And connecting with people doesn't function in either of those ways. It's this totally anomalous thing. And we maybe don't get a ton of practice with managing our expectations, communicating our expectations, being flexible and kind of pleasantly surprised because we're habituated to these other ways of interacting with the world.
Right. It's also in dating apps, it's like because you want to be, swiped right, you want people to choose you. Sometimes you're putting your best foot forward, right? So it's like, here are all the things about me that are amazing. This is it. And then when you meet that person, it's like, okay, now I have to be this person that I said I was online. And if you've been chatting with this person on the dating app, now you have to be this person. But when is it okay to relax? Just like be yourself. And, there's always that question about when does it get real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when you can really be yourself and when you're connecting with someone in that kind of authentic place, that's when it really hits. That's when like the love feels really good, and that need for connection, for acceptance feels really, really met. But it's something that I have noticed in myself in the last kind of 10 years. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I think this is downstream of being super online, both on the apps and social media, is being more kind of preoccupied, I want to say, with how the people I'm connecting with look to other people, how they might look as a reflection of me. And I don't like that impulse in myself, because I think it sometimes can be an added barrier to the people that I really, really connect with. And I think that has to be connected to this idea of how do we present ourselves online? How are we always available for sale? How are we always branding ourselves?
Oh man. So like as a performer in general, as a creative, that has had, before my current partner, and even, when my current partner and I got together, that is something that started to be new for me too, where I was just like, okay, so like, it was like a part of myself that I was not happy with. That I was just like, how is this person going to be a reflection of me? Like, you know what I mean? Like when we're out and about, what are people going to say about like, look at these two, or like what? There were these weird kind of silly things that were creeping up in my brain. And I think it is because I had started for a minute, a hot minute, started thinking of myself like, this is a brand. Like not that I'm a brand, because I absolutely am not, but like as Nikki Devon, who do I want to be seen in these streets with?
Yeah.
And I had to like counter that with like, girl, you are not Beyonce. Settle down. You are walking around in Austin. Nobody is worried about you. Nobody is worried about you and who you're with. But you're right. There was definitely that moment of like me being very aware of that. That it just blew my mind. That I hadn't thought about that in a long time. That's true. And I wonder how many people who are actually influencers make dating mistakes and choices that end up being mistakes based on that.
Yeah, I mean, I love like Love is Blind, and I just like binge watched a bunch of like seasons of The Ultimatum, and I feel like you really see people fall into that trap very commonly on those shows.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I mean, our lives are so online, and that's scary.
Everything.
How could you not be thinking about that all the time?
All the time. Speaking of which, actually, Ultimatum had me in a chokehold, first of all. And I'm going to go way back. So like 2021, Netflix launched that series 20-somethings in Austin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so I remember back in the day, Real World Austin was filmed here too. And it was just like, it put our city on the spotlight for many reasons, but specifically for just like nightlife and like what it's like to be in Austin as a young professional. And it was shiny and it was bright and it was sparkly, and people were still struggling to like find love. And then you have the ultimatums and the love. Like, how do you think these reality TV shows affect people's like expectations of living in Austin and dating in Austin?
So I'm going to let out my inner like teenage boy for a second and say that there's a great Chet Klosterman essay about this, where he blames.
Wait, Chet Klosterman, is that what you just said? Okay.
Yeah. He blames the Real World specifically for introducing this idea that we are kind of well served by presenting ourselves in these like roles and kind of these characterizing personas that translate well on reality TV. And, I think Instagram can only exacerbate that, where you want something that's going to readily translate to other people so they'll follow, or that they'll resonate with who you are on television. And apprehension of our own multitudes in the current media economy can make it hard to date, because people are complicated and have, strange and conflicting interests and are far more complex than they are on reality television. The media that we watch inherently informs our behavior. How can we not be watching these reality television shows and internalizing some idea of what relationships are supposed to look like, what our behavior in those relationships is supposed to look like, how much fun we should be having when we go out to the bars in Austin,
Right.
I think at a certain point, we're all kind of play acting what we've seen on television
Ooh.
to some degree.
Ooh, Rose. I mean, listen, it's. I was somewhere the other day and I was dropping on someone else's conversation. It was just two younger, like, way cooler than me, young people sitting next to me. And the only reason I could hear what they were saying is because they were talking very loud, but also I'm nosy. And she said, one said, "Oh my God, like, how did that date go last night?" And she's like, "Oh my God, it was so fun. It was this, it was that, it was this, it was that." It sounded like it was a good date. And then she backdoored it with, "But he only has like 730 followers." And I was like, "Oh, are we now including are we including followers into our dating? Like, it's like all of the things that I need out of a partner are we now including their followers in our prerequisites?"
Yeah, it's kind of this weird outgrowth of, I think, the natural attraction towards social proof. We like people who we know are liked by other people. This might be where I personally am a little weird. I'm a huge advocate for dating guys who are super, super offline.
Love it.
I love a guy who's never posted on Instagram once ever in his entire life. Oh God, it hurts like in my body thinking about the idea that human worth is that we're measuring it in follower counts, even though that's such a kind of intuitive, instinctive, like, it's not hard to see how you get there. I mean, remember before they were followers, they were our friends. I was just thinking about this yesterday.
Right.
On Facebook, you had friends, and so you had 1,700 friends or 20,000 friends or whatever on Facebook. And, who wouldn't want to date somebody with 20,000 friends? That person, seems very likable on the surface.
But also it's like, I'm torn. I'm torn between the two. Part of me is just like, yes, date somebody that is not on Instagram. That's not. I love that. In my brain, I'm like, yes. But then the other part of me is because at this point I've been programmed. I'm like, well, how am I going to find out about them? How am I going to know about them and who they are? And it doesn't even enter your brain. You could just ask. You could have a regular conversation face to face. But we are so used to beforehand being able to just like look someone up and learn everything in your brain. You think you're learning everything about them based on their profile or based on their Twitter or right? So I definitely skirt that line. I want to be more like you, but I think I'm more on the other end. It's like, I need to know everything about this person first.
Yeah. And Esther Perel, who writes about, like, especially about sex in long-term committed relationships, has spoken a lot about that, that the amount of passion and desire you can feel towards someone is directly proportional to the amount of uncertainty that you can tolerate with them. That so much of what draws us to people is that unknowability of them. And I think, at least for me, dating maybe got a lot more fun when I was able to go kind of accept that fundamental unknowability of people and accept that there were always going to be parts of this other person that were going to be strange and unpredictable to me.
Which is part of the excitement for me anyways.
Yeah, totally.
So maybe an upside of the challenging dating scene here in Austin, and I've heard this a lot. I've read a lot of articles about the same thing, is that women have robust careers. Like the powerful single woman that's just like worried about her career. And, we've moved on from this idea of that you graduate high school, you go to college, you get married, you have the dog and the 3.2 kids and the fence and, Tupperware or whatever that, dream used to be. We have strayed far from that. We're finding that women are single longer because they are investing in their careers, or because it's just not something that's on their radar. Maybe they don't want to have children. They don't want to get married, whatever it is. I feel like Austin has just like a plethora of single, powerful women. Do you think that plays into the dating scene here?
I really strongly believe that, like, being a successful professional woman is not in of itself a roadblock to being, to finding a partner. But I think maybe to the point we were talking about before, sometimes you have to maybe internalize the idea that the skills that serve you well in your career are not the skills that serve you well in dating. Because I think there's that expectation that the amount of effort I put into this, the amount of thought I put into this is directly proportional to the outcome. And I think sometimes trying to focus on controlling the outcome that you want can maybe get in your way with dating in a way that it doesn't in other parts of your life. You might have to kind of learn to set that mindset aside and allow for the fact that a lot of dating is a numbers game. A lot of it is just time and luck and crossing paths with the right person and really doubling down on being your weird self.
Yeah. I'm curious. So did you hear from readers after your story ran? And if so, what were Austinites saying about this story?
Yeah, I did. I got some really sweet messages about it. Mostly from people, I think, who kind of needed a laugh because the morale might be low around dating. But I do think it resonated. And to some extent, I'm sad that it resonates, right? Because I want people who want relationships to find relationships that fit them. But there's something fun, I guess, about the fact that maybe we're all in it together a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So you write a weekly newsletter about country music called Truck Songs.
Yep.
Where is your favorite place to see country music in Austin, and has it helped in your dating?
I mean, these are going to be maybe kind of cliche answers, but I'm a big fan of Sam's. I love Sagebrush, White Horse on a Good Night. As someone coming from the West Coast, the dancing scene is so novel to me that you can be really close to someone, have this kind of intimate moment with them, and then not have it carry a ton of meaning afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
I just think it's so lovely and such a cool Texas culture.
Are there any other places just like that you would suggest people go to meet others for dating?
Dating experiences I had in Austin was with someone I met at the airport.
What?
I think there's something to be said for being willing to talk to people anywhere you are. And the airport's kind of fun, right? Because you always have so much sexual tension with the one other person in your age bracket who's on the plane. But I mean, I'm a really big fan of the idea that you're kind of always talking to people, always looking to connect with people. I will say the other day, one of my friends and she and I were playing chess at a brewery. And that is officially the best way to meet men, I'm pretty sure. I cannot tell you how many men came up and wanted to talk to us about the chess game. So I recommend that.
Okay. All right. Yep. Now get to a brewery, get your chessboard.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you want to share about dating that we haven't covered?
I think kind of holding the capacity for uncertainty really is such a superpower when it comes to dating, and really has the capacity to make dating feel less stressful and more fun. I know there's been periods in my life when I really haven't enjoyed dating. But I think developing my relationship with uncertainty has brought a lot of levity back into dating for me. I think there are a lot of really great people out there in Austin.
Rose, thank you so much for being here. This has been lovely. Thank you so much for having this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye.
Bye.
That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Rose's social media in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. Also, you just might find someone at our big Austin and Stereo party happening tonight from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Tacova store on South Congress. So come join us for food, drinks, some cuties, and some great Austin musicians. We hope to see y'all there. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.